Good morning, everyone who is watching, and hello for those who are watching the replay. I am really excited today because session is for all of those people out there who love product, who are in product, who are thinking about product, and every aspect of product. I have the team all the way over in Utah in the US of A from Klugonyx. I have Jason Klug, I have Aaron over here, we have Hunter Finlay, and we have Nate Finlay. I'll introduce you to them in just a second. But for those who are looking or stuck in their business for ideas on how to get started in product, design, these guys are multi-award-winning product designers. They're really great guys and won't hold up anymore. And I'll get introduction. So Jason, I would love to introduce you first. Can you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you are?
Yeah, so my name's Jason. I enjoy the business of consumer products, all different types of consumer products, not just baby products and toys, but we tend to do a lot of those because they're fun. And I have a background as a small kid, always taking things apart and putting it back together. I grew up doing that. My parents would get me something and I would take it apart the day I got it. And sometimes I wouldn't be able to figure out how to put it back together, but sometimes I would. But I feel like the ones that I didn't figure out how to put back together helped me become interested in making products like I am today. So now I have a company here in the United States where we do the industrial design and engineering of the product. And then I have a company with Nate as well, which he'll explain, where we actually take our designs and then he works with his team overseas to onboard manufacturers and help you navigate supply chain and how to do that. So it's a full service process to help create all these products.
I love that you offer the full service because I really think that in my experience in business and talking to business owners, it's such a hard thing to navigate product because I think a lot of us rely on, Alibaba, AliExpress when we start looking for product, and we find copycats of things and we find products that we like, and we're dealing with manufacturers in a different country on different time, different language. And I've heard so many nightmare stories about people getting stung on simple little things that they missed in trust. But Nate, I'd love to throw it over to you because Jason just mentioned that you are the sort of second leg in this chain. If you want to do an intro.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Nate Finlay. I handle pretty much the process that takes over after Jason and his team create those killer products. And so we work with the manufacturers. We've got manufacturers in multiple countries. So we're in Vietnam, India, Mexico, and China. And we work to maintain kind of the design integrity, the functional integrity, and try and kind of wedge the final products through that process and come out the other side with good quality and good costs. And so it usually takes us, a little bit of time and back and forth. But one of our key aspects of our process is the transparent collaboration. So we know, as Jason will probably mention a little bit later, our core demographic and the people we work with are small businesses. And we know that when we work with them, we're working directly with owners. And one of the requirements of that is making sure that there's strong trust. And so we like to keep the process very transparent. We like to keep the exposure to the factories very transparent and kind of walk everybody through the process. So
yeah, I love that. And I have to say, I met Hunter, I'm going to throw to you next, at the All Baby Child Expo a few years ago. And I was so impressed by the quality of the product that you deliver and just the passion that you all have behind the startup for that, because I think that's something that is really lacking in, when you work with someone just in China and you just have a manufacturer, you don't get the passion and you don't get the people on the other end really trying to, dig into your brain and understand your business. So Hunter, I'd love to throw to you because I think the first year that we met, you were at the All Baby Child show. You had just designed a product, I think, for Malarkey Kids that ended up winning the best product at that baby show. And I think every year that I've been back, you guys have won the best new product at that show as well. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I am Hunter Finlay. I'm actually Nate Finlay's brother. So that's how I got into this business. But essentially, yeah, I mean, I've met Dee a few different times at the ABC show, and we've been able to work with various companies there. But my role is essentially I do business development and sales. And so I help individual clients essentially through the process of understanding what their needs are and then translating it into what part of our process or our I guess specialties you guys would need or need help with. So that's specifically my role.
Yeah, awesome. And then we better throw it to the you guys are like a table. You have 4 legs that just make this thing rock solid. So I'd love to throw it over to Aaron to do an introduction and talk about your role and your specialty in the mix.
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name's Aaron Nelson. I am the creative director and an industrial designer for Klugonyx. Klugonyx is how we say it in our Yankee accent. And I think I've been with Klugonyx for a little over 4 years as a designer, and love it. We're definitely living the dream. We design toys and baby products and outdoor gear and kitchen accessories and home housewares, like basically like most design students, industrial design students dream coming out of school, and we get to do it all. And we have a really great tight-knit team. I think what's really unique about us is that we have really solid engineering, mechanical engineering and design in the same room. And then we have Nate and his team feeding back information to us about manufacturing. So we get a full idea of the spectrum of a product development process. And then with a small intimate team. So yeah, we have fun. That's kind of like one of our cornerstones is that we get to work on great products. So we should have fun with it. And we love to, especially collaborate with clients. I think we're really good with our clients and making sure that they're heard and brought into the process, and that it's fun for them too. So yeah, that's what we do. I could tell you more, but I'd like to hear more about maybe some more of your questions and more about you guys.
Cool. And like I said, I love that you guys are really passionate about what you do, and thank you so much, all of you, for stepping up this year and being part of the Raw Awards, taking the time out to judge and being part of this session, because I think you all offer such a diverse scope from the roles that you play within this kind of team, but you all display passion and a genuine love for what you do, and that's definitely what Raw's about. So couldn't have thought of a better judging team, and I'm super pumped that you guys gave such amazing feedback, and you just love what you do, and it really screams through. I would love to know, I'll sort of field, I guess, questions at you guys, but feel free to jump in. I would love to know what challenges you think the industry is facing right now, given COVID's obviously smacked the world in its face. Are there any kind of challenges that you think are really ones that we really need to pay attention with in the manufacturing and product design and development space?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I've seen, because one thing that I did, with having all these resources behind us, I started a direct-to-consumer company as well, just so I could sit on the other side of the table and understand other aspects of building a brand and so on and so forth. And that company has now grown and has a living beast. It's on its own, and it's employees and all that sales fun stuff. But the biggest thing that I've noticed, and we see this through our entire client base, is the distribution channels and what to rely on and how to diversify. We had a lot of clientele that focused all of their efforts on distributing through retail and brick and mortar, and I've watched those companies shrivel up into a quarter of their size because that's their only, they had all their eggs in that basket. And, no one's going to stores, obviously. But at the same time, I've seen on the other side, the brands like my own that have focused 100% on selling from their own website. And, yes, it's okay to do retail. Yes, it's okay to do direct to consumer sales. But if you're 100% retail focus, it would be smart to try to balance it out and get those online sales going heavily and figure out, good brand content, good ads, how to run ads, work with a partner that understands the algorithms and the way the paid advertising systems work, because it really is, it's like magic. But the great thing about it is that you get so much out of a sale from your website versus when someone buys something off of a retail shelf. When someone buys something off a retail shelf, you get absolutely nothing out of it except for the money that's usually 90 days late, And when people tell me they come and they want to get their product in Walmart, or in Target, I automatically am worried about the future of that company. And, it's just, the mindset around that is changing. I would actually push, and I have pushed more people to, sorry, there's my dog. I would actually push more people to focus on the direct-to-consumer sales model. And if you want to do retail, do that secondary. And especially with COVID, if you're not doing that, then it's going to be tough.
That's a great tip, because I think that almost goes back to that really old school, when you start in product, like I started 10 years ago, and we were heavily focused on that retail wholesale sort of sector and division, and really like chasing down those accounts because you thought that was where your growth was going to be. And you're absolutely right. COVID has literally smacked those businesses over, and they're not operating now. So people that used to service lots of bricks and mortar stores, you're not getting the orders anymore. And there's been a real scramble to kind of pick yourself back up and get online. I mean, I know businesses here in this town that didn't have a website prior to COVID, and now the government's kind of going, everyone needs to be, our prime minister's talking about e-commerce, which, he's an old dude, like, what does he know about e-commerce? But all of a sudden, everybody's talking about that space. I'd love to know, I'd love to throw it to Nate, who deals with the manufacturing side of things. Are you able to explain, I guess, some of the pitfalls that a business might come up against trying to find and deal with their own manufacturer versus going through a team like you guys? Because you, I guess, would have seen some pretty gnarly, stories from business owners prior to kind of investing in, going with a team.
Yeah, well, I have a bit of a different perspective on that too, since I've lived in China and gone through that process. So probably the biggest thing that we've seen is the lack of operational control that goes into, like, when new companies are starting, business owners, as Jason's mentioned, we've kind of gone through some of this ourselves, and us starting a business too, we've dealt with these things. But it's like, as an owner, you're being pulled in so many different directions, right? And as soon as the product's launched, or as soon as it hits a certain point, you're like, okay, the factory's got it. And there's kind of a disconnect that happens. And especially when you have the language barriers and you have all those things that happen, the asking versus what is made gets tweaked. I don't know if you were, as a young kid, we used to play this game called telephone, where you start on one end and you have 10 people in a line and you whisper something in each person's ear, and it goes down the line. And by the time it gets to the end, it's something completely different. And we see that over and over and over again.
We actually call that, sorry to interrupt, but the funny thing is, I think in Australia, if everyone agrees with me, we call that Chinese whispers. And it is that,
do you?
So it's funny that you mentioned the China and the language breakdown, because I think, am I right, guys? Yeah, in Australia, we call it Chinese whispers, because you say one thing into an ear. So we're such an incorrect country. I realize this about our country. Sorry to cut you off. I just thought that was, very funny that you call it telephone, very politically correct. We call it Chinese whispers.
Yeah. Well,
there's everything you need to know.
Yeah. And there's a difference, because that happens in normal days and when we're talking to each other, but we have the language to be able to work through the problems and the mistakes and that kind of thing. And so it's taken our company a little bit, and we're still kind of working through those things too. But operational controls, where we set execution requirements, like we set performances to say, hey, I need you to fill out this document, right? I need you to deliver clear information about what you're doing. not just, hey, can you respond to my email? That's probably one thing I would definitely recommend as they're working, is whatever you can do to turn a communication into a deliverable process. That's going to really help clean up some of that cross-boundary or cross-border execution. And never make assumptions. Like, we have an entire team in China and we still don't make assumptions. Like, it's just when language is gone and cultural value structures are different, you just have to take everything and boil it down to its bare minimum, its basic performances. And sometimes I feel like I'm dealing with 5-year-olds, but it's like the principles to run and manage a home with children come down to the same principles when you're doing communication at that basic level. So we do little things like never write a paragraph, like we never ever write a paragraph. We always bullet point everything we're saying, and we keep it down to 1 or 2 sentences. Those are little things. Like one thing we do is we always force the factories to do some of the work of the information gathering. So like when we send pack outs, or we say, hey, I need my product shipped in this much, this box and this many, we actually force them to fill out a pack out form that we'll create, because when they're making it, it's forcing them to integrate into our operations and our processes.
Yeah, great tip. I love the communication one with the bullet points, because I think you're right. When you pack down text and you send huge emails about what you want, it's totally lost in translation. You never get what you need out of your manufacturing. I love it. I'd love to throw to you, Aaron, because you mentioned earlier that, straight out of your design school education, you're living your dream now and love what you do. But I'd love to know, if you could go back to the very beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself and why?
To not be scared to take risks. And I think that goes for probably entrepreneurs and a lot of professionals, to not be scared to make investment in yourself, to spend money to do professional development and to do education, because it will come back to you. Sometimes it's hard to see like the long view, right? It's hard to see the 5-year, 10-year view. But if you can make those investments in yourself, then it'll pay off later on. And that's part of my story, is being able to stick with it and go back to school and be a really struggling student for a while and a freelancer, just keeping the dream alive in my imagination until and kind of faking it until you make it, like drawing. For years out of school, I was drawing product and trying to make furniture and doing all the things that a professional would do, but not really getting paid to do it, because I knew that, eventually the more I practiced, someday clients would pay me to do that. And that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of messages in there, but kind of sticking with it and taking risks and kind of faking it till you make it, and thinking big.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you just said then, is take the risk. I think a lot of business owners, may start out and they may have 1 or 2 products or a little range of products, and then they start to play it safe. They sit in that zone where they don't do any more product development and they keep kind of flogging the same product. And, even for us, I've got a business partner with a business that I run, and we've literally just launched 1 product, but we're really looking now, I'll be in touch, to product develop in our brand. Can you, I'd love to hear from all of you, but I'll stick with you while I've got you on, Aaron. Yeah. Can you explain the importance of investing in product development or outsourcing that if you don't know where to start? What are the benefits to working with a team if you're just kind of scrambling? I mean, it's an investment, obviously there's cost involved, but what the benefit to that might be for somebody that doesn't know where to get started or may be a little bit nervous about taking that risk.
We talk about this a lot, and it just helps to have more brains in the room, right? To have a team. We have so many clients that we're kind of like a one-man band, a one-person show before coming to us, and they had maybe only one kind of narrowed way of thinking about their new product or their brand. And just to have more people in the room that you can trust and bat around ideas and help you solve problems, it's just invaluable. And so we talk about like the value of a team a lot, and me as a designer too. Like there's this kind of like, I don't know, fantasy or myth about like the singular designer genius model, right? And that's just constantly like debunked for me. And I'm always reminded that the team is so strong. Somebody's going to have an idea about how to fix a certain thing, and somebody else is going to have an idea about how to like, you know, tweak a mechanical part to make it work better. And it's just, yeah, it's nice to have people to help you do that. And then, you know, the fact that we're professionals and we've done it for years is, it helps, you know, because we have all that experience behind us. So as far as like,
do you mind if I add a story onto that, Aaron?
Yeah, go for it.
So we've got this client that had a successful Kickstarter. We actually helped them kind of bring that to pass. And we've been working through over the past 4 months, developing their product in China and going through like a lot of iterations. And kind of how our process works is we'll get the chunk of the design and the execution done in the US and get the thought leadership, and then we'll kind of go through and fine tune the details with the Chinese team to make sure we're hitting costs and execution and quality and all that kind of stuff. And we had kind of a month of this one part. It was just supposed to be a little hook that's going onto the back of this chair. And we would constantly, like, we came out with 5 or 6 ideas. The factory would test a couple. It didn't look all that great. And this really supports what Aaron was saying, because at the end of the day, what happened was through that process of us going through and back and forth with the USA team and the client and the factory, we had one particular idea that just like spawned, you know, I think it was like 4 days ago, that solved it. And within an hour's worth of time, we were able to come to the conclusion, generate the 3D models, create a spec, and kick it off to the factory. And we're 4 days later and we're supposed to have a sample, you know? So that's a great example where when you have that team and you let that process, you know, as Aaron was saying, that kind of collaboration happen back and forth, and you do get that spark of here's the solution, you can really execute on it very quickly.
Yeah, it's super important, because like you said, if you were working one-on-one with a factory, that time delay can blow out to be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and you still don't have a product up, because you really have to be driving the ideas, right? China aren't great at being innovative. They're great at copying and taking direction and working on a, you know, on a spec or a 3D or a CAD, but they're really not, most of them aren't super innovative. They're not going to give you the idea. So there's definite value in having a team that kind of work with you, like you said, and you guys all have different perspectives, so you kind of become your own sounding board a bit. I'd love to know.
One more quick point on that, though, just to thinking about more. One thing that people tend to forget as well is they aren't looking at their business holistically. Yeah. And like, how the hell is one person gonna launch a business, figure out marketing, figure out sales, figure out website, figure out branding, do all this, that, and the other, and then at the same time go through the complex process of developing a product? When really it's better to, and you're not going to go and hire industrial design, engineer, project management that manages and knows how to work with China. We have that. So you focus on building the business, the brand, and you know, the important things, to be honest, that is front facing and what gives that people that feeling behind your company and your product, and we'll make the product behind it.
It's brilliant advice, and we've spoken. It's funny that you say that, because from the judges that I've interviewed previously have all said the same thing. You focus on what you're best at and outsource the rest, because if you're bogged down trying to, like you said, do marketing, SEO, product development, you know, negotiations, sales, design, everything else, accounting, bookkeeping, you can't do it all. So you're best to focus on the things you're really good at and your strengths in your business. Outsource the rest, because while that's being outsourced and created and done for you really well, you're able then to keep your business going and keep your business growing and have a trusted team that are kind of, you know, working away on the back end. Brilliant advice. I love that. Yeah.
Well, and adding on to that, like one of the things that we see repeatedly too, and I think we've, Jason and I, and we've all experienced this when you're starting a business, is the need to have that outside kind of sparks that happen with people that have gone through it. Whether it's, like with Roar and you have that big community, or it's teams of people that know how to make product, or whatever it is, that as business owners, it's really easy because we care so much about the businesses we're making to get stuck in these like pits of like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do, but yet you're still like banging your head against the wall to make it happen. And the more resources you have available, the more people that you have there to throw these things at, it really keeps the momentum of the business going. So you're not getting stuck in those holes.
And a lot of times we've already broken through those walls for you. So for us, it's not a wall anymore. It's just a little speed bump that we're used to going over.
And you just kick flip over that like ain't no thing. I love it. I'd love to know, so for everyone that's listening now and that'll watch this on the replay, we've obviously got product-based businesses that have entered the awards this year, but we have a lot of service-based businesses and other businesses that have been thinking about how to get into product. And we also have existing product businesses that have had product and have done their own manufacturing and design and development, but might be looking for fresh ideas and feeling a little bit stagnant. So I guess what would your advice be to those listening today after listening to this session and kind of getting an idea about what you guys do and how the process kind of works? How do they get started? Like, what's one thing that they can do today that might help them get started in, exploring the opportunities for product development? Who do they contact? How do we get in touch? What's something that they can do to kind of kick it off?
Well, I mean, of course you contact us. We know what we're doing, but the thing is you gotta take a step back. We've seen it too many times. There's a person, someone launches their first product, it's killer, it's successful, but then what happens is that company flatlines, right? They've maxed out all their sales channels. They're maxed out their customer base. But at that point, what you have is you have a customer base. So you got to look at that customer base and go, okay, who am I now? Who is this customer? Why did they buy my product? But really thinking about it, why are they interested in this brand? Now you got to build a brand, and to be a brand, you have to have more than just one product. That's like a product, not a brand, right? So take a step back, look at those customers. Who are those customers? And figure out what their next need is. Whether that's talk to them, get to know them, talk to people that have bought your product and used it for a period of time, and see what's out there. Start asking questions to those people that fit that demographic. And then, a couple things that we could do to help. If you have a general idea of what that next product is, you can reach out to Hunter at Klugonyx.com. And I'm sure Dee will give that information as needed. And basically the first thing we do is we got to figure out, like Hunter said at the beginning, what is it you need from us? Like what, do we need to help you brainstorm and elaborate on that idea? Sometimes we have people come with a very general idea of what it is, but they don't know exactly what it is. And maybe we need to help you explore that doing research of our own, or maybe you just know, I've talked to 30 customers and all of them mentioned this. This is the next product I need to make. What do we have to do? And then we'll take you through an ideation process where we help you explore it. So we'll put pen to paper and look at the market and understand what's out there aesthetically, what's in trending, whatever, right? And we'll help you formulate a bunch of concepts, put them in front of you, and then we'll whittle them down to that perfect concept that you're stoked about, and that your customers are going to be stoked about. After that, we'll then take you through a prototype development process. So it goes from designer's hand into engineer's hand. But at the same time, that engineer is still, collaborating with that designer to create the initial 3D models, assets, the documentation needed to make that initial prototype. We'll make that prototype, we'll send it to you, you test it. Same thing at that point, I recommend talking to your customers, showing them that prototype, your trusted customers, get feedback on it, and then we tweak it, revise it, and then we continue to tweak it and revise it until eventually it's at the factory level. They're making production samples off the tool, but at the same time, we're still tweaking, revising it, making it better and better until you get to your first production run. And yeah, basically it all starts with Hunter. That's why I chose someone that looks as handsome as him.
You are handsome, Hunter. I have to admit,
Thank
when you
you.
walked up to me at the expo, I was like, I'm supposed to be getting married tonight, but no, I'm joking.
So
I gained quite a bit of weight in COVID, so
don't worry, everyone's rocking COVID kilos or COVID pounds in Australia too. So it's kind of the look for 2020, I think. Yeah.
Well, I used to look like Hunter about 10, 15 years ago. So
7 kids. See, this is what happens. So that's great. So for anyone listening, Hunter would be your first point of contact. So one of the things I think people hold back on though is finances. Cash flow is killer in business. Just wanted to touch on this really quickly because Kickstarter was brought up as an idea to, raise capital and things like that. I think it's much bigger probably in the States than it is here. But we in Australia are lucky and fortunate enough to have a government initiative called the Export Marketing Development Grant, where with businesses who look at exporting into different territories outside of Australia, once you've spent $5,000 in your business, up to 50% of your expenses then are recoupable in a grant. So I've been really fortunate with my businesses over the last, I'm going to say 6 years, to receive that grant. And it's a great one to be able to, invest in marketing and opportunities outside of Australia and then have 50% of that investment come back and put it back into going again. And it's definitely allowed my business to spend more each year, but it's a great one for startups to get involved with. And we're really lucky that this year our government has realized the impact of COVID and what that essentially has done for our export market. Because for me, I would be in America right now at the trade shows and selling products and meeting buyers, but of course none of that's happening. Our government's actually looking at now giving that money up front. So for anyone that's listening to this that thinks I don't have the capital or I don't have the money to explore an opportunity like working with you guys, that is definitely an opportunity to look at that Export Marketing Development Grant. And I definitely will share more of that in the Raw group so that you can find out more about it. But going back to the Kickstarter information or that you could share, like on some of the brands, I guess, that you've worked with that have had successful Kickstarters, was there anything that they did that made them stand out or have a successful Kickstarter that you could give as advice for someone that is looking at that avenue?
Yeah, and we've done our Durai Home, which is the direct to consumer brand, that was all started from Kickstarter. And I mean, really, the biggest thing that I've learned, I've seen so many flops. I've had Kickstarters that we've worked on flop, right? It just happens. But a lot of the things that are missing when they go into it is, first off, they don't think about the user base that's on Kickstarter, right? Like Kickstarters are like people like me, like millennial product nerds, right? That's it. Like mostly majority male demographic, disposable income, and they like to buy products, and they like the fact that it's a startup. I've backed 120 Kickstarters now.
Awesome. And
yeah, I'm addicted. It's bad. I get that damn email, and then before you know it, I'm $120 into some new back scratcher or something. But the biggest thing with Kickstarter that I've learned, which sucks, but it's just the way it is, but you really have to spend money heavily, and you can't do a Kickstarter expecting it to be profitable. It's very rare that a Kickstarter is profitable. Kickstarters a lot of times are already venture backed before they get onto the platform. They have plenty of ad spend money. They have plenty of money to invest into content. They probably, already have capital set aside for manufacturing. And Kickstarter is just a platform as a pre-sale, and they just crush everything because they have the money to put into ad spend. Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, so on and so forth. So really, and you can't just focus on that. You have to diversify your marketing as much as you possibly can. There's a lot of tools when it comes to affiliate programs that we've used. There's backer specific email channels that you could pay to get on email blast. You can pay to get featured in various articles and press releases that are Kickstarter focused audiences. really you have to stack everything up on top of each other and constantly keep it going the entire duration of the campaign. And sadly, at the same time doing all of this, which is some manual, some it's, you're picking up the phone and talking to people that have followers, whatever it might be, you're still having to spend a daily amount on ads and making sure that those are converting profitably. And also after the campaign financially, there's a lot that you have to be prepared for. Of course, manufacturing, obviously that's expensive. You have tooling, you have the initial production run, you have the cost of freight, you have the cost to actually ship to the end customer. All that stuff needs to be accounted for. And on top of that, you have, Kickstarter taking 7%. You have a lot of times you will want to work with a marketing agency that specializes in running paid advertising for Kickstarter. You have to pay them a percentage of the sales they do. You have to pay out, any affiliates that might have gotten you some sales. You have to pay their commission. You have to pay, all that stuff, so you have to really know your budget going into the campaign. You have to constantly maintain that budget throughout the campaign. And at the end of it, you have to check yourself and make sure that you're actually going to be able to pay to fulfill the product. And a lot of times you don't have enough money to fulfill the product. And at that point, sometimes it's worth going, you believe in it, you validated it, you obviously have customers that purchase it, maybe go the family friend route. If you don't get a grant, like you can get, what Dee's talking about, but at the same time, go the family friend route, raise $5,000 here, $10,000 there, do small rounds and get the money you need to get that product to market.
Yeah, Nate just shared two of the tests or two of the Kickstarters that you guys have worked on. So definitely if you click on those links, I'll make sure I share all of your details too in the group post this chat as well. But I love that you really honed in on that Kickstarter's really leveraged off. It's a marketing exercise first and foremost, and really it's a pre-launch. You guys have worked on some seriously cool products. The ones that I've seen are really cool, really outside of the box. I loved the cube one that you did that year at the All Baby Child Expo. I thought that was like, and you had the one where you pulled the thing, bits and pieces, the sensory toy. Like,
yeah.
Can you tell me, is there, I mean, you probably can't name names. You've worked with lots of people, but is there a product that you've created as a team that you just got to the end of and went, yes, this is the product? Is there one that stands out?
Aaron.
Yeah.
I mean, not to like toot our own horn too much, but I really think that the Kickstarter that Nate just posted of the dish rack and the dish pad has been just one of our best products ever to work on. And I think for so many reasons, we allowed ourselves to go through a full development process. And we did some really great user research in the beginning that led to some insights that went into creating an innovative dish rack that was different from the competition. We had good like innovative materials to work from already from the get-go, and that was like a good launching pad to create a product around. The brand is really strong. There's a really good like kind of lifestyle element to the brand, and so the company and the brand is strong. So it's fun to develop products for a company that's already like got a good image and good outreach. And just overall, I think it's a great product. It's high quality material. We've got a lot of metal and steel and the diatomaceous earth that's kind of like new in the scene and in the kitchen scene. And the design process was really like thorough and creative. We were able to draw early on like some of our favorite Japanese designers and Japanese aesthetics, which are great minimal contemporary aesthetics, and work that into the product. And that was really enjoyable. And then into the utility of the actual dish rack and working through the mechanics of it. And Jason, I think, traveled overseas 3 times, maybe just to oversee the development of the product. So, and in the end, I think it's a really great product, and it's doing really well. That's always nice, right? When you spend a lot of time and then the product's actually making money, and just kind of getting started, right? So I think that's been really one of our great success stories, and having that be one of the brands or the companies that was an offshoot from Klugonyx that we worked on, you know, all of the aspects of. We learned so much. All of that can fold into what we do for clients, and that's kind of like I keep talking about the dream, you know, living the dream. Like that's part of the dream, is being able to have some of our work for ourselves and filling in that space when there's a lull. We can work on our own brand and our own company and products, and then having that, and you know, that learning and that education work into what we love to do with clients, and the both, you know, everything we learn kind of working back and forth, client work and our own work. So but yeah, definitely check out that Kickstarter. I think you'll be pleased with the design itself, and probably want one. That's how it goes.
Yeah, it's like it's a loaded question, isn't it? It's like asking which is your favorite child.
Do you mind if I take?
No, go for it, Nate. Yeah.
One quick thing though, the best products that we've done are the companies and entrepreneurs that aren't racing to the bottom right off the bat. They immediately accept that they're okay going for a higher quality, higher valued product, and that gives us the ability to really flourish.
Well, and I like what I was going to kind of spin off what Jason said, and also kind of take a little bit different angle to the original question. Like I'm a designer by trade, Jason's an engineer, and so you know I resonate a lot with what Aaron's saying. And over the years, as I've gotten more exposure to the larger process and worked with Jason on the engineering side, for me, it's not too much the product, actually. It's been more of the relationships that we've developed over time with our clients, and seeing their businesses succeed. You know, when you work with us, you're not just hiring a one-off guy that's one and done and disappears. You know, like we're in it the long haul. You know, because we know, and Jason knows as we're owners, that you do the design with us, well, we're going to build that relationship and that trust with you, and then we're going to see and be with you for the next like 3 to 5 years, helping you get the products made too. And that's really, for me, what I like to see is when those relationships flourish and grow, and we're able to kind of go through those challenges together. And it's not just, hey, what do we make next? But it also comes down to like, holy crap, Target wants me. And they called me yesterday and I need to have 100,000 units within 3 months. How do we do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's figure it out. That's the part that I probably really jive off of. And yeah, the comment that Jason made is totally right up there. Going for the products that mean something to you, that means something to the customers you're working with, that always drives more emotional connection and more value than just focusing on how cheap can I get this thing. And I know that's a hard place to be, because then it makes you feel like a business owner that you're always struggling with cash, and that's always sitting there dragging you along. And we get that. But if you can figure it out and work through each of those individual problems, figure out your investment process and where that cash is coming from and how to manage the inventory, it really helps the business sing.
You're absolutely right, Nate, because I'll tell you, the first time I met Hunter, he was championing brands that he was working with. He was such an advocate, so passionate, you know, just, you're right, it's not just a product development, and see, you guys really care about the whole process and the whole kind of the development, you know, and it's all the other stuff. And Jody just asked a question. So should you start to build an audience while you're in development, or should you wait till you launch the product?
Well, it depends on, you know, where you're at in the brand development. You know, if you're building a lifestyle brand and you're able to produce the content and produce, you know, a well put together website, you know, social channels, and start actually getting and putting out like a lifestyle, then there's no reason to not start building the audience as soon as you can. And then the product becomes a surprise to your existing audience. It's a fantastic way to launch something. But I mean, yeah, I would say try to build a customer base and understand them. The sooner you understand them, the better. So.
And Julia just asked, is it hard for you guys? I know Aaron's answered this in the chat, but is it hard to hand over the final design to the business owner that you're working with? Do you feel like a sense of ownership once you've finished a design? Where I guess that's a business owner's fear right there, that, you know, Julia would like to know that if you've worked on something or a product, do you find it hard to hand it over to the business owner and say, here you go, it's yours?
I personally, I like, it's like letting the child go into school, even though I don't have kids, right? But I just think about that experience. I'm sure Nick can talk about that 7 times over, but think about it as like, you know, like like Aaron creates these drawings, you know, what are those? Those are just drawings on a piece of paper. But, you know, what's really exciting is when those drawings go into an engineer's hands and then they make into a 3D model, then you get a prototype and you get to use it. And then, you know, at that point, it goes from the engineer's hands over to Nate's team, and then you get production samples back and we get to see them. So like, even though it's out of our hands, you know, at a certain point, we're still along for the journey. You know, we see the product launch online or whatever, you know, like a lot of those Kickstarters I backed are ones that are clients' projects that I've backed, right? Like that's what's exciting. Or the times that Aaron has gone to Target and seen one of the products that he designed, you know, hanging from a tag there. You know, it's like, I mean, that's what you want to see. If you hold it to yourself closely, then you don't get to see the satisfaction of it actually living its life.
Well, I think there's the other piece of that question too, is like, what role do we play in maintaining that? Like we've had clients that have kind of said, well, I don't like this, and you know, we've all kind of gone through this, and they walk away, and then we have clients that say that, and then we work through them, and it's what I think one of the things that Jason and the team, the development team, does really well is when we hit those walls, those emotional walls of like, hey man, I'm really struggling with this design. It just doesn't feel right, or maybe it's not meeting the goals or the objectives. There's always, and this is true in all parts of the business, there's always the desire to kind of walk away and not deal with it, or to push through. And that's one thing I love about the Klugonyx team, and why I started working with Jason, is because that goal to push through, to say like, oh, you know, like this is the client, or they want to go a different direction. We work through that process, and we look at the different elements and say, well, what do the customers want? You know, how do we manage the desires of the business owner with the desires of the customer? How does that translate into the design? And then how does it translate into supply chain and manufacturing and cost and all that kind of stuff?
I'd love to ask Nate on that. You touched on that sometimes you work with a client and they don't get it, you know, that you present product or a range of products and they don't kind of get it. Do you think that as product business owners, that sometimes product business owners are too emotional and too close to their business to actually make a decision to put a product in that actually works for the bigger picture, rather than what they might, you know, see firsthand? Because it is really hard when you've run your own business from the ground up to allow someone else to come in and have an opinion and then create a product and put it out there. So for the customers that, or the clients that you've worked with that might have pushed back initially and went, no, I don't love it, and then you've managed to get them to come around to it, I'm sure they've seen huge success post going along with that. But do you think it was just that they were too emotional in the beginning and too attached to their actual brand rather than making clever business decisions?
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you be? You're investing all this money and time and energy into this thing that you're trying to make, you know? And so I think the ones that we succeed with are the ones that realize that emotional tie and can balance it with the other side of the equation. I don't think we should ever ask people that are investing that much time and resources and money into something to say, don't be emotional about it. But I do think we have to find ways to balance that with, how does that affect in reality? How does it affect my customers? What do they want? You know, Jason made a comment earlier about the customer. Like in today's day and age, like it doesn't take us 7 years to develop products anymore. You know, like GM, that's how long they take to do one car. It's like we can develop products and execute and get it to market within a year, you know, and you know what the customer likes. And that message really drives a lot of what creates businesses succeed, or ignoring that message and it creates businesses that fail.
Yeah,
I call that founder's disease.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you have to just snap them out of it and say, okay, you could either let us do this and help you, or you could go off and stay in your closet and do it by yourself, because otherwise you're not going anywhere with it. But sometimes you have to kind of be like, no, you gotta look at yourself in the mirror and think about this and realize that the people around you is what makes it successful, not yourself.
Well,
Yeah,
and honestly,
point.
like sometimes we've had to go outside of ourselves too to get that answer, because we're part of our own culture and creation too, and that's the value I think in having access to the factories, is that kind of trifecta between leadership and direction and execution. And sometimes we go to the factories on purpose to try and snap us out of it, to say like, no, it doesn't have to be EVA, we can go with a PC and figure out some of those details. But
I love that you say that you can still have, the love and the passion for your business, because I think most people that are in the chat that are on today, I would say they feel like their brands are their fourth, fifth, sixth, second, third, fourth child, or their only child. And you really do get like that. I remember meeting Hunter and introducing to the first prototype I had of a product I developed. And I have felt so tethered to that product in the development that we've done and the redevelopment, that it's only now I'm allowing myself to go, okay, I'm going to outsource this next part because I've put so much of my energy, time, brain juice into this one product. I've also had lots of people around me give me opinions on what they think I should do with this product to do next, the story behind the product, whatever that might be. I guess Aaron might know this from a design point of view. How do you kind of filter out any of that kind of outside opinion? Because you can get really overwhelmed and you can get really burnt out on everybody else's ideas for you. How do you kind of shut all of that out just so you can get laser focused on what is the best decision moving forward for your brand and your business?
That's a good question. And it's a hard one for me because I am a fan of taking in all of the information you can and looking at the entire landscape and looking at all of your competitors and looking at 1,000 ideas so that you can kind of sleep on it and let those things percolate, and then that's where inspiration can strike, and that's where that saying, like the creative mind is oh no, I'm gonna screw it up. Creativity favors the informed mind. I think it goes something like that. So it's just that's kind of my process, is having as much to work with that you can, and then from there you can kind of mash up something original something original. So I don't know if it's a matter of kind of ignoring the noise and trying to stay laser focused, as it is maybe part of a process, right? I think there's a time when it's good to branch out and talk to people and ask questions and look at other things, and then there's a time when it's good to just like hone in and like focus on your own work and your own ideas and your drawings and what's coming out. So it's kind of like everything has its place in the process, and there's definitely times when it's good to just try to like get your own ideas on paper.
I love that advice. Very cool.
That kind of answering the question?
Yeah, I love it, because I think you're right. It's nice to take that outside perspective, but then when you need the time to just quieten it all down and focus, have the focus as well. I think some people get too caught up in the competition and watching their competitors, and while they're watching their competitors are moving a million miles faster than they are. But it is nice to keep your eye on what other people are doing and draw that inspiration. But then when you get the opportunity to to have your own kind of inspired idea as well.
Right. I mean, I feel like it's always like kind of a lame answer, but it's always the right answer, which is like everything in moderation, right? You can expose yourself to like design on Instagram for days, for weeks, and then it becomes unhealthy. But I think there's a healthy level of exposure, and then being able to take breaks and sleep on it, go for a walk, give yourself space. And so it's just having a set of sophisticated methods by which you build something, right?
Yeah, love it.
Well, and to add on to that too, I think priorities, maintaining a clear list of execution priorities. We've seen a lot of times where people get really focused on a particular feature on the design or a particular material of the design. And when you're developing brands, sometimes that is the focus, right? Like you need to maintain that execution engagement of that material. But the clear list is not, it should be kind of filtering itself, right? Like if you know what your business is going to be, you know where you want to go in your business, then your design priorities, your design execution, the cost priorities, everything should filter up into that. And many times that's kind of what I end up seeing with business owners, is that they don't have a clear priority list of what's going to drive their business and drive the growth. And that's where they get confused, or that's where you end up spending a lot of back and forth or get stuck in a swirl in the design process. So
I just had a question. If you wanted to field this one, Nate, while I've got you, what do you find is the most common mistake that brand owners do in the product development or design process? Or is that a better question for Aaron? Both of you.
We all have our opinions.
I was gonna say, yeah, you go.
I like to hear Jason's on this, because I think Jason with DeRye, they've spent a lot of time honing in on that brand. And this is for Aaron too, because they've been kind of a duo team on the execution of that. So I would field it up to them, honestly.
Yeah, Jason, what do you think the most common mistake that a brand owner does in production development or the design process?
I think there's a few. When it comes to the actual product itself, like I talked about before, don't race to the bottom. You know, we're in this era of Amazon where and I actually avoid this type of business as much as possible. When people come to us saying, hey, we need you to source this in China so we can sell it on Amazon, it's like, okay, good luck, go to Alibaba. But it's like, you know, when people go on Amazon, see what a competitor is selling a product for, and then they come and then they hone in on, this is what our price point has to be, right? They're starting off at the bottom, and it throws off the entire development process. It changes the decisions that are made during the design process. It changes the decision that are made throughout the material sourcing and figuring out what to make it out of process. You know, you cut out quality features, you know, before you even know if it's worth it to the customer or not to pay an extra few bucks per that product. Yeah, I think that's a big thing and it happens all the time. And when that happens, it you know, the conversation then becomes like, tell me, like, usually those are very short-term products, and we don't like to do those. We'd rather make some high quality, and if they have that mindset, you know, there's more margin for them in the future. They're going to be more successful that way. And also not spending as much effort in the brand.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm just letting
you can't have a killer product and then like a really poorly done brand with, you know, bad content and stuff like that. You have to, the product has to be tied, you know, with a feeling behind it, right? And that brand gives that feeling. When you think about this product, you know, you're thinking about the brand and the experience you went through to acquire that product, and that feeling that they get through that is what brings them back to buy more products from you. You know, when we help you make your second, third, fourth, and fifth SKU.
You made a great point about, sorry, just quickly, because I really want to make that point again about the price pointing. When you start cutting costs and you lose the quality, you lose your edge, is what I found. Yeah. Always been something I think brand owners make a big mistake going cheap, and the cheap makes it nasty, and quality is what's going to sell you and, you know, have your brand, you know, be reputable.
Your question on that list about what the industry will look like in 5 and 10 years, I keep coming back to the fact that I think the good quality brands that we see developing around us that have good quality products that sell for a premium are the ones that are going to survive. And all these low cost Amazon products, you know, not that it's bad to be a low cost Amazon product. Sometimes it like works and it's a good low cost Amazon product. I buy stuff from Amazon all the time. I'd be, you know, wrong. But I think those brands that put that effort into that quality and that brand and that content and that feeling they create and sticking to that and staying strong, those are going to be the ones on top in 5 to 10 years. The other ones are going to have a hard time to keep up.
Julia said earlier she loves seeing all the kids and the people walking around the background. You guys are so real. I love it. So Nate, sorry to cut you off, but I just saw Aaron with his little one.
You know, as Jason was talking, one of the things that I consistently talk with when we're developing brands with people is it's evolution, not revolution. Sometimes, you know, getting the brand exactly right, you know, ends up stalling everything else. And there's, I think, you know, when we were reviewing some of the awards and stuff, one of the users commented how they would have gone and gotten a patent and a trademark earlier on their brand because they kind of gotten taken advantage of. That's always a hard place to be too. It's like, I think, you know, I'm a firm believer in learning as you're going, and getting that brand to that 80% mark, getting it out there, getting feedback on it, evolving it, and taking it one step as you go. You know, trying to get the brand 100% that first time, it's like all of us trying to be perfect the first time. It doesn't work, you know. It just forces you into this hole of like, ah, shit, it doesn't work. And so just kind of keep that in mind as you're going. It really is about evolution, not revolution.
You guys have been awesome. I wanted to throw it out. I know that there's some burning questions with people, but I want to throw it over to Maria from Kitty Cutter, who Hunter met last year at the All Baby Child Expo, who has a brilliant product and is at that stage where she's considering product development and things. And I'm sure Maria has a question burning for you guys to answer. Maria? Oh, hang on. I think you have to unmute.
Unmute. Yay. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Good.
I think I met you all last year.
Possibly. We were all over that floor. All day.
I think you all turned up at my stand and I was like, oh, what do you lot want? Yeah, so I've had a bit of a poo year, as everybody has, but after working with the same factory for about 11 years, they've sent me a whole load of rubbish. So it's been very challenging. So now I am looking to develop my product range, which I've been trying to do with the factory for so long, and it's just not got anywhere. So you guys have been actually on my radar for a little while, so I'll be in touch after the call. But as far as I can't believe I actually landed in Vegas this time last year for the trade show, so that's quite funny. About cost, what sort of price would we be looking at to start with, you guys? Does it depend on how many products we want to develop, or
yeah,
can you give us an idea?
It really depends on like what the product idea is, like how complex it is, how many parts we have to design, what's already thought out, what's not thought out. So it does vary, but that's something that we do is I'll get on the phone with the client, you know, we'll just talk through your product idea, and then I'll go back to our engineering and design team like Aaron and Ed and talk through, okay, what do we think that this will take? How much time do we think it'll take in order to get this from beginning to end based off of what you've been able to provide us? So those are things that we can provide to you once we know the idea a little bit more in detail.
Yeah. And so do you have specific factories that you work with, or you just source the best factory for that product that you're doing?
Well,
yeah, so go ahead.
Well, we do kind of a process that we go through. So if it's a new product, you know, if we're developing a full supply chain, we'll take a wide section. So, you know, we'll use, you know, your existing product or the current new design and concepts and shoot it out there and look at the entire manufacturing market and take samples, because you know, when we're looking at factories, it comes down to three things, you know, cost, quality, and then their execution. And so if it's an existing product that we already have supply chains built, then we'll probably leverage our existing relationships. But again, in all of those scenarios, we're always taking multiple data points, especially on pricing, especially on quality. So like we have like 6 different injection suppliers we work with.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'll be in touch. Thank you guys. It's been great to actually talk to all of you. I've been following your page and lurking on your website for a little while, so
that's great.
Thank you.
So I'm sure that the lovely Julia, who has been going crazy bananas in our chat room, would have a question for you. Do you want to jump on, Julia?
I'd love to. So hi, I'm Julia Christie. I've got the Now Snail. It's a baby fingernail and toenail trimmer. And I wish I could be there. I had been there at ABC Expo and plans to get there next year. Thank you so much for all the information. First of all, it's been absolutely fantastic to hear. I have an industrial design team myself, Formzoo Designs, and they've been amazing. But my question to you was the environmental and ethical considerations that go into product design tends to make it more expensive. So if you want to manufacture in China without those ethical considerations, then you can get products cheaper. But if you want to incorporate that into the product, and that's important to you as a brand and a brand owner, and environmental considerations as well, that tends to make things more important. I know that Nathaniel answered the question previously saying it tends to be at the bottom of the pile when it comes to considerations. Do you think or hope that that's changing so that customers and consumers are, because my product is almost 10 times the competing product. You can get a pair of clippers from the shops for, $2, $3 here, and mine's $20. And it's $20 because of environmental considerations and high quality and ethical production and all those things that I've tried to tick. Do you think at some point we're going to move in that direction? Or should I be going, I just don't want to know about the ethics of the production and I'll just make it cheap?
It's a kind of complicated conversation because a lot of the times our natural buying behaviors push us into environments where there's less controls, right? Like right now, a lot of the manufacturing is moving away from China into other third world countries like Africa and Bangladesh and Malaysia. And it's because there is not as many people in that process and labor is cheaper, which means you don't have as much oversight, you don't have as much engagement, you don't have as many controls over what is being done. And there's always this trade-off between those two. One thing I would say is I do appreciate, I actually feel like China, because of where they've been, the amount of flack that they've gotten, I think they had in the year 2030, they're supposed to be one of the lowest carbon producing countries, is one of their goals right now. They've come out with PLA materials that are plant-based, and they are really pushing a lot of that. I've seen some of the price for those plastics come down in the greatest speed in China versus outside of the other countries because they are investing in building materials and supply chains that can support that. It's new materials that are eco-friendly. It's kind of like new technology. When it first starts and first develops, it is a premium and it's a small value base. There's not as many people that care about that. There's a lot more people that care about buying a set of clippers for 50 cents. So
to that point, one thing that, making product, if you make poor quality product, then it gets thrown away quickly versus a really high quality, well-made product lasts many, many years. I really like us to when we make a product, a lot of times, the goal can be make something that you can pass down to your kids, right? Versus buying something on Amazon that's temporary and it goes in the garbage after a couple of years when you don't use it. So that's one way to be environmentally ethical, right? But also one thing that Nate does, and every time I go to visit, when he was over there and I would go visit the factories with them, is when it comes to ethics, right? One thing that we do when we tour the factory, we look at things like where they're eating, how they're eating, like in the lunchroom, we look at, the quality of the living space where they're actually set up, because a lot of these factory workers are living in apartments on site, and you can see the quality of those apartments, the cleanliness, what are the environments like actually inside the factory? What do the people look like? Are they healthy? Stuff like that. We've toured factories where we immediately said, no, this isn't going to work. But we've toured the factories we work with, we're picky about that. And I think that is, that's just one way. It's important. But I feel like there's more and more factories that do take care of their employees and stuff like that than it used to be. That's for sure.
Well, it's just like any other company, right? Like when you tour, if you tour any company and there's crap all over the floor and food and nastiness, it's like, the operational processes that company has, their level of success. And so we do the same thing with factories. And, and I think there's you know, to Jason's point, there's a few ways to look at that word sustainable. You know, some of it comes down to recyclable, some of it comes down to material efficiencies, some of it's like, are they using children labor? Is that the right ethics? You know, that kind of stuff. And of course, we don't use any factories that do that. But just to reiterate on the sustainable piece, like I think actually the factory we use with DeRye, one of the things we specifically were going through and asked a lot of details was how are they recycling the leftover materials? You know, is it being reused? Is it just being thrown away? What is the dumping process? And going through the actual operations of the company. And if the factories are good, I mean, they know they can make money off the recycling. You know, if there's extra materials that are left over, they want to recycle it because they can recoup some of their losses. And so that's a normal economic structure that's really healthy to see, is them doing that.
Fantastic. And if anyone needs an easy way to trim their little one's nails, cut your nails now. There it is. Shameless plug. Yay.
There's lots of kids between them. Hunter just mentioned in the chat that China has also implemented an anti-dumping tax for many of the phone manufacturing processes. And I know that even with my manufacturer for silicon, they were slugged a 30% environmental tax for their carbon. So they are, you know, very mindful, I guess, of it and getting better. Yeah,
they're getting there.
They're getting better quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
does anyone else have a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jason. No, go. You're right.
Well, I was just going to say it happens often where Nate and I are trying to make a new product, and then we find out that entire manufacturing process has been pushed out of a main city for air quality, and you now have to travel 8 hours inland to go to the factory. So they're getting better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're going to have to, because there's so much pressure from around the world, you know, looking at China too. Sharon Hunter just wrote, as part of your service, do you help in choosing the right material for the product, or perhaps even help searching and creating new material to create the parts for the product?
We definitely help pick the materials, but when it comes to creating materials, that's tough. When really there's millions and millions and millions of different materials when it comes to fabrics, plastics, you know, all kinds of different blends of materials and stuff like that. Making a material, that's more of like a job for a chemist. But usually we'll set it and it'll evolve throughout the development process once we figure out on the manufacturing level what actually works well, what's the cost point or price point of it, so on and so forth.
Sorry, I was just going to say, for a bit of context so you understand where Sharon's coming from, she has an eco range of bamboo dinnerware, and she is exploring the PLA, the biodegradable, the degradable, and all of those sort of things, and having a bit of trouble finding those manufacturers in China that can actually do the biodegradable. And she's finding a lot of sorry to talk on your behalf, Sharon, but she's finding a lot of factories that are sort of making claims, and then when you actually go and read the fine print, it's not actually biodegradable, or she's sort of getting tripped up where she's spending a lot of time trying to source the right manufacturer, only to kind of get down the rabbit hole and realize they're not actually doing what they claim.
Yeah, and I knew, when I saw her stuff, I knew that's what she was struggling with, because we've dealt with the same thing. Like, we've got a couple products. We've got a line of biodegradable bags. We're doing a dog bag right now too that's biodegradable, and we've hit that wall. And that there's always that like bullshit salesman thing happening in there, where they're just trying to sell whatever they can and call it and white label it. And it is hard to filter through that. So in that scenario, we do filter through the sources. We find the sources that meet your requirements. To Jason's point, probably the furthest we've ever gone on the material side is we do like hybrid materials. We had wall plug-in where they wanted something that felt a little bit more higher quality, and so we did like a couple mixture of plastics together to try and get the what they were looking for. But we're not, I would not say we're a material from the ground up creator. That's not what we do.
Yeah, very cool. I'm very mindful of your time, guys. I know when we started, Aaron and Jason were both in light, and now it's dark, and you guys are obviously in the evening over there and probably needing a beer. So does anyone else have a question before I let these wonderful guys go for the night? Or are you all okay? No,
Well,
I think
thank
they've
you.
been asking throughout the chat. So I think you guys have been great fielding questions throughout the session too. So I would love to just wrap it up. You guys, thank you so much again for being part of the 2020 Raw judging panel. I cannot tell you how appreciative I have been of your feedback, your time, your enthusiasm behind this awards, knowing not much about it, I guess, except for face value. Really, truly appreciate it. For the insight that you've given everybody today, thank you for being super honest and just sharing a lot of your wealth. I will definitely share your contact details with everybody in the group, and I'm happy to invite all the judges into the group once all the judging closes off so that you can all kind of mingle and connect. I know there's a few people here listening today and that will watch on the replay that would love to get in touch. So Hunter, I'll be spruiking your email address all over the chat today. But I'd love for you guys just to wrap up, probably, I guess, one at a time. Seeing that you have been on the back end, now nobody knows which judges have judged which categories yet. So that will all be revealed later. But I'd love for you to give a little bit of advice to those that have entered from what you've seen, what people can work on. And I guess if they don't make the top 5, you know, sometimes it's that they feel like a failure or that they haven't kind of done well. I know that one of the comments that came back from your judging team this year individually was that some of the businesses played it safe over the last 12 months. So I would love for you each to kind of give your perspective in that, if you would. I guess, Aaron, I'll start with you. You're on the screen.
Yeah, a few thoughts that came to mind was just the clarity of the message. And this goes for when you're entering competition, but also just the brand and the products. Like, you know, you have to really, and Jason brought up like direct to consumer earlier, you know, which is this phenomenon of like advertising on Instagram and Facebook and just, you know, selling your brand in 3 seconds. So you have to pass the 3-second test. So there has to be some real succinct message, clarity of message about what you're selling, why it's unique, why it's innovative, and, you know, click go, click buy. So I think that's something that everybody can work on, is just distilling the value and the message a lot. I know there were a lot of questions in the brief or in the competition forum. But yeah, even then, I think just distilling the message is a really good idea. Yeah, that's my biggest piece of advice. And then I think just working on the brand and having the brand feel really like strong and hip and on trend, and, you know, making sure that everything that surrounds the product is a cohesive brand. So no matter where you look, how you look at it, it feels like a nice, clear, like intentional aesthetic and identity, and that's done through the brand. Yeah.
Fabulous. Jason, do you want to give your insight?
Yeah, I would agree a lot with Aaron about the you know, branding, stuff like that. I you know, there's a lot of good product ideas in that list, but a lot of it, you know, the pieces that I'm missing when I was visiting the website and stuff, it's, you know, that's all it was a product. Also, one thing that's really important to consider, and this does tie back to brand, and I know we're product people here reiterating over and over on brand, but we've seen a lot of the failures and successes, and a lot of times the brands that do a good job on the brand is what makes them successful. Those are our clients that really grow. Yeah, I would I mean, just making sure that's paid just as much attention to, but also when you have multiple products under your company, consider, you know, what that design language is throughout your product line. When you see all your products sitting on a tabletop, you want someone to know that's all under the same brand. You know, when you go and you have, you know, product from here, product from there, blah, blah, blah. Like that was one of the things I saw with one of the companies. It was like, that's great that you have multiple products. That's great. You're growing the brand and that you're offering more and more to your customers. But if they don't look similar or they don't have some kind of theme, I don't know, it devalues what you're doing versus, yeah, you want a product suite, you know?
Great advice. I love that advice. Yeah. Nate, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think kind of evolving that same conversation, it was being able to leverage all the work you've already done, right? Like that's one thing as business owners. I think businesses that succeed understand the value that they've built in their consumer base and how to tap into that again. And so in the companies that have a product already that have seen some success, it's really easy to sell your existing competitor or existing consumers another product. It's way easier to do that than it is to go get another new consumer. And so that's a really good place to kind of leverage and say, how can I add in? Like I think one person was saying, if I have a luxury product already, I don't want to devalue that to a price point. It's like, well, make a lower price item to target that demographic and to target, and provide that additional value in your company and market to your consumer base that you've already collected. It's going to be faster money generation doing that than starting a new business all the way over again with some new product outside of your scope.
So cool. You guys are such a wealth of knowledge. I just sit here like the duck on the car dash, just nodding. Yeah. Hunter, did you want to give your perspective on?
Yeah. I kind of what Jason was saying, it's pretty easy. It's good to have like extra products on your line, and sometimes it's easy to source those from like factories that are already making them. But yeah, when you do that, it does kind of conflict with maybe the core product of your line. And so just making sure that branding, people can identify your product no matter which one it is out of your line. But also that I did notice like it's important to keep in mind like a product's life cycle. Sometimes, it can take a year, 6 months, a year, a year and a half to develop a product and manufacture it. And so if you already developed a product and you've already sold it for, a year, 2 years, you always got to be constantly thinking about what the next product is and planning for it, because, it's going to take another year to even get it to the market. And so you don't want to have a lull in sales. So you want to make sure that you're kind of retargeting your clients or your customers, kind of like what Nate was saying as well.
Yeah, I would love to touch on that, Hunter, while I've got you. So in business, a lot of the time we go into, when we launch or we do a product range, we do like a chunk of products. Do you think it's a better strategy to do kind of drip feeding new products so that you stay relevant and have something to talk about? Or is it okay to do like sort of show your whole hand at the start and run with that for, years? What?
Yeah, I think, and Jason probably has a better idea of this, but I think it is good to maybe trickle feed products, because it also helps, on a marketing aspect to, if you are doing ad spend for a direct consumer company, that you can market new things or you can bundle products up and do more promotions. It just keeps your customer base more active and more interactive with your brand, and there's more things to share on social media. I think that doing it that route would be a smart way to go, but.
That's right. You don't want to bury the efforts of launching one product when you're launching another at the same time. If you go, yeah, that drip effect is fantastic, because every 6 months, every year, that customer re-engages with you and it gets better and better, versus if you do it all at once, you're going to get a big spike and then it's going to level out, versus getting a spike and continuing to build on that. It works great.
But I think for those companies that probably don't have a line to their customers, try and figure that out. Like, I think that's going to go a long way. In many situations, it's not that difficult. It's a flyer, it's a card, it's a email, and try and generate that connection with your customers.
You guys have been awesome. I've just watched the chat explode. Everybody's been so appreciative of your time. Thank you so much again for your time today. Like I said, your insight, your passion. I love that you guys are so passionate about what you do. There's such an obvious love for each of your roles in this team. You just love what you do, and it's really authentic. It's great. So I will post all of the links up to connect with you guys post session, but I would just love for your final thought on, I think I touched on it a bit earlier, but just something that people can take away today that they could work on and think about. What's one thing that you just think that they can do today that's going to make it a better day for them tomorrow in their business, in terms of just moving forward in that development space?
Talk to your customers.
That's a good one.
I think like having your eye on the prize, like a lot of times there are a lot of companies that come talk to us or think about working with us. They're just focused on like, oh man, it's going to cost this much to, you know, add a new product to my line. But it's because they're not thinking that, yeah, it might cost 20 grand, but you know, your goal isn't 20 grand. Your goal is to have much, much more than that, you know, sales beyond what you can, you know, comprehend now. And so kind of coming back to what Aaron said at the beginning of the meeting, just like being able to take those risks and just focusing on why you're doing it and what that end product is, not like what you're doing now. So
how about experiment, try stuff, build, you know, experiment with your hands, experiment online, experiment with outreach and marketing, see what works and what doesn't, and learn from it.
Legends is all I can say. So there you guys go. This was the Klugonyx. Am I saying it right now with my Aussie accent? Klugonyx.
Klugonyx.
I'm such an Aussie bogan. This was the team today. So you can see why they were selected to be part of, I begged them to be part of the Raw Awards this year. They're totally living their, you know, they love what they do. They live the life surrounded by their businesses, and just, you guys are super cool. Thank you again so much for your time today. Appreciate it. Everybody's just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will definitely be in touch. I would love for 2021 for you guys to be able to come over to Australia and be part of our Raw event in person. I would bring all your family and bring the kids and the dog and come and see what Australia is all about. I would love to facilitate that. I'll definitely be working my butt off behind the scenes to make that magic happen. I couldn't think of a better kind of cooler cat mob to come in and really do some product stuff with the Aussies down under. So thank you guys so much again. Have a fabulous night. And to everyone that's watching today, have a fabulous day. And those that play it on the replay, let us know what you thought and get in touch with the guys. So thanks, guys.
Thank
you
you
guys so
having
much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.